Welcome to the Every Need Met podcast, where we renew our minds, transform our thinking, and walk boldly into God's provision and purpose for our lives. I'm your host, Kathleen Coleman, minister, author, speaker. In today's episode, we're talking about reclaiming the divine way of thinking. So let's dive in. When God created man in Genesis 2:7, it says, "And God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul." Now, that breath of life wasn't just air, it was spirit. It was divine intelligence. It was the mind of God. You see, we were designed to think his thoughts, create like he creates, and live in communion with his wisdom. Now, in that moment, Adam didn't just come alive, he came online and connected to heaven's frequency. And that, my friend, was our original mindset. A mind that was alive with purpose, clarity, creative power, and so much more. But something happened in the garden. When Adam and Eve listened to the serpent and chose disobedience, they didn't just sin, they surrendered the divine mindset. They exchanged truth for deception. And in that moment, humanity lost access to God's thoughts or to the mind of Christ. Now, Romans 5:12 says, "Through one man's sin entered the world, and death through sin." And along with this death came confusion, fear, a distorted view of self and of God. And even though we're still created in his image, Genesis 1:26, we are still born into a system shaped by sin. Born into sin and shaped in iniquity. Psalms 51:5 says, "In sin did my mother conceive me." So this means that our subconscious mind, which the Bible often refers to as the heart, is formed by and through a fallen world system shaped by trauma, culture, repetition, and fear. Proverbs 23:7 reminds us that as a man thinketh, so is he. You see, the subconscious mind, your heart, is where your beliefs live. It governs and controls your reactions, your confidence, your creativity, your problem-solving abilities, and even what you think is possible. So when our subconscious mind is filled with fear, rejection, limitation, lack, it's no surprise that we struggle to think like God, create with boldness, or even trust his voice for that matter. And this is why God says, he says clearly in Isaiah 55:8-9, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." But here's the good news. God's not saying that to shut us off, right? He's not wagging the finger. What he's actually doing is inviting us higher. He's reminding us that there's a higher thought that we were created in and that we are entitled to and that we are yet connected to. And he wants to teach us his thoughts. He wants us to renew our mind and reclaim the mindset that was lost in Eden. So this is why mindset renewal matters. Romans 12:2 tells us, do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Mindset renewal is not just positive thinking, it's spiritual transformation. I will repeat that. Mindset renewal is not positive thinking, it is spiritual transformation. When we renew our minds, one of the things that it does is it silences the noise of the world and we hear the voice of God much more clearly. There's a scripture in Isaiah 30:21, and it says that you will hear a word behind you saying, this is the way to go. Walk in it when you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left. So God is saying, you will hear my voice clearly. You will hear me giving you instructions and guiding you and telling you to go this way and go that way. But yet we struggle hearing that, receiving that, because of the noise. And again, a renewed mind silences the noise of the world, and we hear the voice of God. A renewed mind, when we renew our mind, our creativity is unlocked because we're no longer bound by fear. We're no longer afraid to act on those amazing dreams and desires. Ephesians 3:20 says, now unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that worketh in us. In order for the exceeding and the exceeding abundantly, in order for God to do more than we even expect, in order for him to exceed our highest imagination or our highest desire, we have to first think like he thinks and imagine like he imagines. And he will do exceedingly abundantly more than we can think or imagine. But we must think like he thinks. And then it says, according to the power that worketh in us. So that is his power, that is his nature, that is his mindset working in us. A renewed mind also helps us to become problem solvers because we start thinking from God's perspective. In many of the problems that we encounter, we have the power, the potential, the know-how to solve them when our mind is renewed. Now, the Bible tells us in Mark chapter 9 and verse 24 that nothing is impossible to those who believe. Now, here is the back story to Mark. There was a man whose son was possessed with demons, and the disciples were not able to solve that problem. They were not able to deliver the son. So the father brought the child to Jesus, and Jesus said, well, if you believe, all things are possible. And the man said, I believe, help my unbelief. And here's the point. In order for our unbelief to be helped it requires that our mind is renewed to believe like Jesus believed. Jesus was able to deliver the child. Jesus understood the assignment. Jesus was God in the flesh, so we know he had the mind of God, but he understood the assignment, and he understood that he was one with God and that he had the mind of God. So mindset renewal helps us to become better problem solvers because we start thinking from God's perspective. And of course, mindset renewal aligns our thoughts with God's thoughts, according to Romans 12:2. It's through mindset renewal that leads to the transformation where we know his good, acceptable, and perfect will for our life. So we see that an unrenewed mind limits how we see or how you see yourself. An unrenewed mind limits how you show up in the world and how you hear from God. But a renewed mind reclaims the divine advantage. It allows you to walk in the wisdom, clarity, and confidence that has always been yours. So, my friend, your life will only rise to the level of your mindset. And the quality of your mindset depends on whether it's shaped by the world or transformed by the word. God is not withholding his thoughts, those higher thoughts. He says it's his good pleasure to give us the kingdom. It is his good pleasure that we renew our minds. So God is not withholding his thoughts, but he is inviting you to partner with him in the renewal of your mind. This is good news. So here's a couple of things that you can ask yourself, right? What old beliefs, old mindsets are keeping me stuck? Where have I allowed culture to shape my identity? And what would happen if I began to think like God again? Beautiful to imagine. My dear friend, beloved, you were created in his image, and you were born to think his thoughts. So, thank you for joining me today for this episode of Every Need Met Mindset. If this blessed you, share it with someone who's ready to think higher and live to their fullest potential in God. And please remember to subscribe, rate, and please leave a review. Until next time, remember, you were created with the mind of Christ, which is a mindset of abundance with every need met. Till next time, bye for now.